Imagine being forced to wash greasy dishes in a luxury restaurant that you actually own. That is exactly what happened to Arthur, a quiet billionaire. He walked into his own establishment looking for a warm meal. Because of his old jacket, the cruel assistant manager treated him like a criminal. She made him work like a slave for a single piece of stale bread. Arthur kept his identity a secret to see her true character. But the game ended when the general manager walked into the kitchen. He shook with fear, bowed deeply, and said, "Sir, what are you doing here?" In an instant, the woman's world completely crumbled. To find out how this powerful lesson unfolded, make sure to watch until the very end. But first, please subscribe to our channel to support our work. And don't forget to comment below to tell us where you are watching this video from. Let's dive into the story. To understand how this situation happened, we must look at the life of Arthur Pendleton. Arthur was 68 years old. To the world, he was a billionaire. He was the founder and sole owner of the Pendleton Hospitality Group. His company owned over 50 high-end restaurants across the country. The Golden Oak was just one of his many properties. It was a beautiful restaurant located in the heart of the city. It was known for its expensive steaks, fine wines, and wealthy clientele. But Arthur was not a typical billionaire. He did not wear flashy suits or expensive jewelry. He did not drive sports cars. He lived in a modest house on the outskirts of the city. He loved gardening and taking long walks. 2 years ago, Arthur lost his beloved wife, Eleanor. They had been married for 40 years. Eleanor was the love of his life. When they first started their business, they had nothing. They used to share a single sandwich for dinner because they could not afford two. They built their empire together through sweat, tears, and absolute dedication. When Eleanor passed away, a part of Arthur died with her. The massive wealth he had accumulated suddenly felt meaningless. He realized that money could not buy the things that truly mattered, could not buy love, health, or time. After her death, Arthur stepped back from the daily operations of his company. He appointed regional managers to run the businesses. He preferred to stay in the shadows. However, Arthur had one strict rule for his company. He believed in human dignity. He always told his executives that every single person deserved respect. It did not matter if they were a wealthy businessman or a person cleaning the floors. To Arthur, everyone was equal. Lately, Arthur had been receiving anonymous letters from employees at the Golden Oak. The letters claimed that the management was toxic. They said that the staff was being mistreated. The letters stated that tips were being stolen, and employees were being fired for no good reason. Arthur was deeply disturbed by these reports. He did not want his name associated with cruelty. He decided to investigate the matter himself. He did not want to announce his arrival. If he came with a limousine and a suit, everyone would act perfect. He wanted to see the truth. He wanted to see how his staff behaved when they thought no one important was watching. It was a chilly autumn afternoon when Arthur decided to visit the Golden Oak. He had spent the morning working in his garden, digging up old roots and planting winter flowers. His hands were slightly calloused, and his nails had a bit of dirt under them. He wore a faded green jacket that Eleanor had bought him 15 years ago. It was warm, comfortable, and full of memories. He wore an old pair of jeans and simple walking shoes. Arthur decided to walk to the restaurant. It was a 2-mile walk from his home. As he walked, his mind drifted to Eleanor. He remembered how much she loved the autumn leaves. He was so lost in his thoughts that he did not notice the dark clouds rolling in. Halfway through his walk, it began to rain. It was not a heavy downpour, but a cold, steady drizzle. Arthur did not mind the rain, but it did make his clothes damp. By the time he reached the busy commercial district where the Golden Oak was located, he looked quite disheveled. His gray hair was wet and stuck to his forehead. His old green jacket was dark with moisture. Arthur felt a bit hungry. He also wanted to get out of the cold. He looked up and saw the golden, glowing sign of his restaurant. He smiled. He decided this was the perfect moment to step inside, get a hot cup of coffee, and observe how the restaurant was being run. He reached for his phone to check the time, but his pocket was empty. He realized he had left his phone on the kitchen counter at home. He reached into his other pocket for his wallet. His heart sank. He had left his wallet in the pocket of his good coat, which was hanging in the hallway at home. Arthur stood outside the restaurant for a moment. He considered turning back and walking home. But he was cold, tired, and his legs were aching. He thought to himself, I am the owner of this place. The general manager, Marcus, knows me well. I will just step inside, speak to Marcus, and have a quiet lunch. I can pay them back later, or simply deduct it from the company accounts. With that thought, Arthur pushed open the heavy glass doors of the Golden Oak. He stepped into the warm, luxurious dining room. The air smelled of roasted garlic and expensive spices. Soft classical music played in the background. The floors were polished marble, and the chandeliers sparkled like diamonds. It was a beautiful place. Arthur felt a brief sense of pride. But that pride was about to be shattered. Clara was 28 years old. She was a woman driven by intense ambition. She had graduated from a business school and immediately applied to the Pendleton Hospitality Group. She was clever and knew how to impress her superiors. She always said the right things when the higher-ups were around. Because of her sharp performance, she had recently been promoted to assistant manager at the Golden Oak. However, Clara had a major flaw. She suffered from deep insecurity. To mask her insecurity, she became arrogant. She believed that her new position made her superior to others. She looked down on the waitstaff, the kitchen workers, and especially the customers who did not look wealthy. Clara believed that a high-end restaurant should only serve high-end people. She often told the hosts at the front door to give the worst tables to customers who were not dressed in designer clothes. She wanted the restaurant to look like an exclusive club for the rich and famous. She thought this would impress the regional director and lead to her next promotion. On this particular afternoon, the general manager, Marcus, was locked in his back office. A major corporate audit was taking place, and Marcus was buried under piles of financial paperwork. He had left Clara in charge of the main floor for the day. Clara felt like a queen ruling over her kingdom. She walked around the dining room, adjusting forks and frowning at the servers. Then, she saw Arthur walk through the door. Clara stopped in her tracks. She stared at the old man. She saw his wet, messy hair. She saw the faded, damp green jacket. She saw the dirt on his shoes. In her mind, an alarm went off. To her, this man looked like a homeless person who had wandered in to escape the rain. She imagined him sitting at a table, ruining the view for her wealthy guests. She imagined him begging for food or causing a scene. She felt a rush of anger. How dare this man enter her pristine restaurant? She marched over to the front entrance before the hostess could even greet him. Clara wanted to handle this herself. She wanted to show her authority. Arthur stood near the entrance, wiping the rain from his face. He was looking around, trying to spot Marcus. Before he could see anyone familiar, a young woman in a sharp black suit stepped directly into his path. She had her arms crossed, and a look of deep disgust was plastered on her face. "Can I help you?" Clara asked. Her tone was dripping with sarcasm. Arthur smiled warmly. "Yes, hello. It is quite miserable outside. I was hoping I could get a table and perhaps a hot bowl of soup and a coffee." Clara did not smile back. She lowered her voice so the other guests nearby would not hear. "Let's be honest with each other, old man. You cannot afford to eat here. A bowl of soup in this restaurant costs more than your entire outfit is worth. We run a high-class establishment. We do not hand out free food to beggars." Arthur was taken aback. He had expected to be greeted with the standard hospitality that his company was famous for. He had not expected such raw cruelty. He kept his composure. He wanted to see how far this woman would go. "Young lady, you should not judge a book by its cover," Arthur said gently. "I am simply a hungry man looking for a warm meal. I actually forgot my wallet today. But I assure you, I can make sure the bill is paid." Clara laughed. It was a cold, mocking sound. "Oh, you forgot your wallet? What a classic excuse. Do you think I am stupid? Every street hustler uses that line. Listen to me clearly. If you do not turn around and walk out those doors right now, I am calling the police. I will have you arrested for attempted fraud. Arthur looked at her badge. It read, Clara, Assistant Manager. He felt a deep sense of sorrow. This was what his beautiful company had become. This woman was representing the Pendleton name. Is there a manager I could speak to? Arthur asked quietly. Perhaps Marcus is available? Clara's eyes narrowed. She was shocked that this old man knew the general manager's name. But then she figured he must have read it on the restaurant's website or heard someone else say it. Mr. Marcus is a very busy man, Clara snapped. He does not have time to waste on people like you. I am the one in charge here. My word is final. Arthur was about to reveal his identity. He was about to tell her that he was Arthur Pendleton, the man who signed her paychecks. But then he paused. He realized that if he revealed himself now, she would immediately apologize. She would fake her kindness. He would never know if she was truly a bad person, or if she was just having a bad day. He wanted to see the depth of her character. He decided to play along with her game. I see, Arthur said, pretending to look defeated. I understand that you have a business to run, but I am truly cold and hungry. Is there really nothing we can do? I am willing to earn my food. I am not looking for charity. Clara looked at him. She was about to yell at him again, but then an evil idea popped into her head. Just 10 minutes ago, the restaurant's main dishwasher had walked out after a heated argument with Clara. Clara had refused to let him take a break to see his sick mother. So the young man had thrown his apron on the floor and quit. The kitchen was currently in chaos. Plates were piling up, and the chefs were screaming for clean pans. Clara knew that if the dishes were not washed soon, the lunch service would ground to a halt. If she had to hire an emergency temp worker, it would cost money and show up on the daily report. She looked at Arthur's old, worn hands. She thought this was the perfect solution. She could get free labor, solve her kitchen problem, and humiliate this old man all at the same time. You want to earn your food? Clara asked, raising an eyebrow. Fine. Our dishwasher just quit because he couldn't handle the pressure. If you go back into the kitchen and wash every single dish, pot, and pan, I will give you a bowl of potato soup and a piece of stale bread. But you don't get to eat until the job is done. Do we have a deal? Or do you want to take your chances with the police? Arthur looked at her for a long moment. He saw no empathy in her eyes. He saw only greed and malice. We have a deal, Arthur said calmly. Clara smirked. Follow me, and try not to touch anything expensive on your way back. Clara led Arthur through the elegant dining room, past the wealthy guests who were enjoying their meals. She opened the heavy metal doors that led into the kitchen. The contrast was shocking. While the dining room was calm and peaceful, the kitchen was a war zone. Chefs were shouting orders. Smoke was rising from the grills. And in the corner, the dishwashing station was a complete disaster. Trays, plates, glasses, and massive silver pots were piled high, nearly reaching the ceiling. The floor was slippery with water and grease. A young kitchen helper named Leo was trying his best to wash a few plates, but he was completely overwhelmed. He looked stressed and exhausted. Listen up, everyone, Clara shouted over the noise. The kitchen staff fell silent and looked at her. This is our new dishwasher for the afternoon. He doesn't have any money, so he's working for his food. Make sure he doesn't slack off. If he breaks anything, let me know immediately. The head chef, a large man named Robert, looked at Arthur with concern. Clara, he's an old man. This is hard, physical labor. The pots are heavy. Are you serious? I am the assistant manager, Robert, Clara barked. Mind your own business and cook the food. If this old man wants to eat, he has to work. It's a simple rule of life. With that, Clara turned on her heel and walked out of the kitchen, feeling very pleased with herself. She had solved her problem for free. Arthur stood at the dishwashing station. He looked at the massive mountain of dirty dishes. He took off his damp green jacket and hung it carefully on a peg on the wall. Underneath, he wore a simple denim shirt. He rolled up his sleeves. Leo, the young helper, walked over to him. He looked apologetic. I'm sorry, sir, Leo whispered. Clara is ruthless. You shouldn't be doing this at your age. Here, let me help you with the heavy pots. Arthur smiled warmly at the young man. Thank you, son. But do not worry about me. I may be old, but I am stronger than I look. Let's get to work. For the next hour and a half, Arthur Pendleton, one of the richest men in the country, stood in front of a deep sink filled with boiling hot, soapy water. He scrubbed plates. He scraped off leftover steak and pasta. He rinsed glasses until they squeaked. His back began to ache, and his hands turned red and wrinkled from the water. But Arthur did not complain. In fact, he felt a strange sense of peace. Washing dishes reminded him of his youth. 50 years ago, when he and Eleanor opened their very first small diner, he was the one who washed the dishes every single night. He remembered the feeling of honest, hard work. He remembered how happy he and Eleanor were back then, despite having no money. As they worked side by side, Arthur began to talk to Leo. He asked the young man about his job and his life. Leo sighed, looking around to make sure Clara wasn't nearby. To be honest, sir, this place used to be amazing. Mr. Marcus, the general manager, is a great guy. He cares about us. But lately, he's been stuck in the office dealing with corporate issues. Clara has taken over the floor, and she has made our lives a living nightmare. How so? Arthur asked gently, scrubbing a large copper pan. She treats us like slaves, Leo said bitterly. She cuts our hours without warning. If a customer leaves a cash tip on the table, Clara often pockets it, saying it belongs to the management fund. We never see that money. The guy who quit today, his mom is in the hospital. He just wanted to leave an hour early to visit her. Clara told him if he left, he was fired. So he walked out. We are all terrified of losing our jobs, so we just keep our mouths shut. Arthur's heart burned with anger as he listened to Leo's story. The anonymous letters were true. The corporate culture he had spent decades building was being destroyed by one arrogant woman. He realized that Clara was a cancer in his company. She was driving away good, hard-working people. Do not worry, Leo, Arthur said softly. Storms do not last forever. Things have a way of sorting themselves out. Leo looked at the old man. He noticed something strange. Despite the heavy labor, the old man spoke with an incredible grace. He didn't sound like a beggar. He sounded like a man of authority. But Leo was too tired to think much about it. They kept working until the massive pile of dishes was completely gone. The station was clean and shining. Arthur wiped his wet hands on a clean towel. He rolled down his sleeves and put his faded green jacket back on. He felt tired but satisfied. He had completed the task. Just then, the kitchen doors swung open. Clara walked in. She was checking her watch. She looked at the dishwashing station and was visibly shocked to see it completely empty. She had expected the old man to give up or break something. Instead, the kitchen was cleaner than it had been in weeks. Well, Clara said, trying to hide her surprise, I guess you're not as useless as you look. She walked over to the soup station. She picked up a small plastic bowl. She ladled a small amount of potato soup into it. The soup was lukewarm, and it was mostly broth with very few potatoes. She grabbed a piece of bread from a basket of leftovers. The bread was hard and dry. She walked over to Arthur and handed him the bowl and the bread. Here is your payment. Now you can take this and eat it outside. I don't want you sitting in the dining room. Arthur looked at the small bowl of cold soup. He looked at the hard bread. The deal was that I could eat a meal, Arthur said calmly. It is raining outside. You expect me to eat this in the cold rain. You're lucky I'm giving you anything at all. Clara snapped. You're a beggar who forgot his wallet, remember? You don't get to make demands. Take your food and get out of my restaurant before I change my mind. The kitchen staff watched in silence. They felt disgusted by Clara's behavior, but they were too afraid to speak up. Arthur looked at Clara. The time for testing was over. He had seen everything he needed to see. He knew exactly what kind of person she was. Arthur was just about to speak when the doors to the back office opened. Marcus, the general manager, stepped into the kitchen. He looked exhausted. He had been reviewing spreadsheets for 6 hours. He rubbed his eyes and stretched his back. He wanted to get a cup of coffee from the kitchen before returning to his paperwork. "Clara," Marcus called out as he walked in. "How is the lunch service going? Did we manage to fix that issue with the—" Marcus stopped talking mid-sentence. His eyes locked onto the old man standing in the faded green jacket. Marcus blinked twice, thinking his eyes were playing tricks on him due to fatigue. He looked closer. He recognized that face. He had seen that face on the cover of business magazines. He had met this man at the annual corporate galas. It was Arthur Pendleton, the billionaire founder of the company, the man who owned the entire restaurant group. Marcus's face turned completely white. His jaw dropped. The clipboard he was holding slipped from his fingers and crashed onto the hard kitchen floor, scattering papers everywhere. Clara noticed Marcus's strange behavior. She assumed Marcus was angry that a dirty old man was standing in his kitchen. She immediately stepped forward, wanting to take credit for handling the situation. "Mr. Marcus, I am so sorry about this," Clara said quickly. She pointed an accusatory finger at Arthur. "This homeless man wandered into our restaurant. He had no money and tried to scam us for a free meal. But don't worry, I handled it. I made him wash all the dishes to pay for a cheap bowl of soup. I was just about to throw him out into the street where he belongs." Clara smiled proudly, waiting for Marcus to praise her for her quick thinking and efficiency. But praise did not come. Marcus ignored Clara completely. He took 3 large, trembling steps toward Arthur. He bowed his head deeply, his voice shaking with absolute terror and respect. "Mr. Pendleton, sir," Marcus stammered. I had no idea you were coming. Please forgive us. What on earth is happening here?" The kitchen fell into a dead, suffocating silence. The only sound was the sizzling of meat on the grill. Clara froze. Her smile vanished instantly. She felt the blood drain from her face. Her heart stopped, then began to beat furiously against her ribs. She looked at Marcus. Then she looked at the old man in the faded green jacket. "Mr. Pendleton?" Clara whispered. Her voice was barely audible. "Marcus, what are you saying? This is just a beggar." "Shut up, Clara," Marcus roared. He turned on her, his face red with anger. "Are you completely insane? This is Mr. Arthur Pendleton. He is the founder and owner of the Pendleton Hospitality Group. He owns this restaurant. He owns the building. He owns your contract. He is the boss of all of us." Clara's world crumbled around her. She felt dizzy. She looked at Arthur's hands. They were wet and wrinkled from the dishwater. She had just forced a billionaire, the man who built the empire, to scrub pots and pans for an hour and a half. She had insulted him. She had called him a beggar. She had offered him stale bread. She looked at Arthur, her eyes wide with sheer panic. She dropped to her knees right there on the dirty kitchen floor. "Mr. Pendleton, please," Clara cried out. Tears began to stream down her face. "I am so sorry. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know who you were. If I had known, I would have given you the best table in the house. I would have served you myself. Please, it was just a misunderstanding." Arthur looked down at her. His face was calm, but his eyes were filled with a profound sadness. He did not yell. He did not raise his voice. He spoke with a quiet power that shook the room. "That is exactly the problem, Clara," Arthur said gently. "You would have treated me with respect only because you knew I had money. You would have been kind to me only because of my power." Arthur walked over to the peg on the wall and grabbed his clean towel. He dried his hands one last time. He looked around at the kitchen staff. He saw Leo, who was standing with his mouth wide open in shock. Arthur smiled kindly at the young man. Then Arthur turned back to Clara, who was still weeping on the floor. "When I built this company with my late wife, Eleanor, we had a vision," Arthur said. "We wanted to create a place where people could enjoy good food and be treated with dignity. I have always taught my managers that every human being deserves respect. A person's value is not defined by the thickness of their wallet or the price of their clothes." Arthur took a step closer to her. "Today, I came here as a simple, hungry man who forgot his wallet. I wanted to see how my staff treats a regular human being in need. And what did I find? I found a woman who uses her small amount of authority to crush others. I found a woman who mocks the poor and mistreats her own staff. Please, sir, Clara begged, grabbing the hem of his jacket. I worked so hard for this promotion. This job is my entire life. Give me one more chance. I will change, I promise. You will change, Clara, Arthur said firmly. But you will not change here. You are fired. Effective immediately. You are banned from ever working for any property under the Pendleton name. Marcus, see to it that she packs her things and leaves the building within 5 minutes. Marcus nodded quickly. Yes, sir. Right away, sir. Clara realized there was no saving herself. She buried her face in her hands and sobbed uncontrollably. She had climbed so high, only to fall so hard because of her own arrogance. She stood up, completely humiliated, and walked out of the kitchen under the watchful eyes of the entire staff. Arthur turned his attention to Marcus. Marcus, you are a good manager, but you have been too detached lately. You have been locked in your office, ignoring the people who make this restaurant function. A captain cannot guide a ship if he never leaves his cabin. Marcus bowed his head. You are completely right, sir. I have let the paperwork consume me. I failed to see what was happening to my team. I take full responsibility. Good, Arthur said. Now, let us fix the damage that has been done. Arthur walked over to Leo, the young helper who had been kind to him. He placed a warm, fatherly hand on the young man's shoulder. Leo, you showed me kindness today when you thought I was nobody. You offered to lift the heavy pots for an old man. That is true character. That is what the Pendleton Group stands for. Arthur turned to Marcus. Marcus, Leo is your new assistant manager. He will take Clara's place. Give him the proper training and double his salary. I want someone with a good heart running this floor. Leo's eyes filled with tears of joy. He could not believe what he was hearing. He had gone from a struggling kitchen helper to an assistant manager in a matter of minutes. He would finally be able to help his family and pay for his mother's medical expenses. Thank you, Mr. Pendleton, Leo choked out, shaking Arthur's hand. Thank you so much. I won't let you down. I know you won't, son, Arthur smiled. Arthur then looked at the rest of the kitchen staff. To everyone else, I apologize for the toxic environment you have endured. To make things right, every single employee in this restaurant will receive a 20% raise starting today. And the tip policy will be strictly audited. Every dollar left by a customer will go directly to the staff who earned it. The kitchen erupted into cheers and applause. Chefs hugged each other, and some of the line cooks were wiping away tears. The dark cloud that had hung over the Golden Oak for months had finally lifted. Arthur walked back to the soup station. He picked up the small plastic bowl of lukewarm potato soup and the piece of hard bread that Clara had given him. Marcus stepped forward. Mr. Pendleton, please let us cook you a proper meal. We have prime rib, fresh seafood. Let us prepare the best table for you. Arthur shook his head and smiled. No, Marcus. I earned this meal. I washed every single dish in that sink to pay for it. And honestly, it is the most meaningful meal I have had in a very long time. Arthur took the bowl and the bread and sat down at a small wooden table in the corner of the kitchen, right next to the dishwashing station. He dipped the hard bread into the lukewarm soup and took a bite. It did not taste like a billionaire's meal, but to Arthur it tasted like victory. Tasted like the honest days of his youth. He looked up at the ceiling and whispered softly, We did it, Eleanor. We kept the dream alive. An hour later, the rain stopped, and the sun broke through the autumn clouds. Arthur put his faded green jacket back on, said goodbye to his newly motivated staff, and walked out of the restaurant. He did not have his wallet, and his pockets were empty. But as he walked home under the golden afternoon sky, Arthur Pendleton felt like the richest man alive. He had lost his wealth for an hour, but he had restored something much more valuable. Human dignity, kindness, and respect. And that was a treasure that no amount of money could ever buy.